On September 11th, when hijackers commandeered 4 planes headed to New York and Washington, passengers and flight attendants on board started making calls.
Our number one got stabbed. Our purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who stabbed who, and we can't even get up to business class right now because nobody can breathe.
Using cell phones and airphones, those on board reached out to loved ones, sought help, and ultimately warned others of the impending terrorist attacks. But for the missing Malaysia Flight 370, silence. No phone calls, no texts, no tweets. One theory that the cell phones didn't work because of the plane's altitude.
45,000 feet was much too high for cell phone service signals to be received, right?
You're just not going to get any consumer-grade technology to be able to talk to the ground from that kind of height.
And so your cruising altitude, 25,000 feet, would it be possible to receive a signal from that point?
Occasionally possible, but very rare.
Another possible reason, no nearby cell towers.
There was some point that the plane had been flying over Malaysia, and there was at least a couple of cities, major cities, and there were some towns and villages. Is it possible that those signals could have gotten to a cell phone tower?
Again, if people were awake, trying to use their phone, and they were flying that low, it is certainly possible that they got to that tower. However, it's also possible that they weren't able to officially communicate, because it's not just sending the radio waves. We have to actually be in touch long enough to have a little conversation.
Those on board 9/11 flights were able to have conversations because the planes were flying very low in densely populated areas when their calls were received. But experts say most of those calls were not made from cell phones, but airline phones which use radio or satellite technology. A technology that has been phased out for the most part because of its high costs. But Malaysia Flight 370 did have airphones in business class. They might have been deliberately disabled, along with the transponder and other communication systems. But CNN aviation analyst Mark Weiss says the more likely scenario is that no one called, even when the plane reversed course.
The lights would have been dimmed. There would probably have been little or no cabin service. It was almost an hour into the flight. It was a very tranquil night. I understand the weather was good, so probably wouldn't have been turbulent. Nobody would have noticed anything. It would have been business as usual.